Welcome to Region Weather Live, your YouTube source for weather across the Dakotas and Minnesota, with an update on the storm system that's moving through our region here beginning Wednesday afternoon and continuing on through Thursday. So we're starting off here on our model looking at Wednesday right around noon, and we're starting to see just the beginning of this storm system. So we got a little bit of light snow that begins to move into the far northwestern parts of North Dakota. But unfortunately, along with that, out ahead of this, we may also see just a little bit of freezing drizzle again, as I've said before. That doesn't always show up on the model. So we're going to start off the afternoon possibly with some slippery road conditions down into southwestern parts of North Dakota. Now, once we get to that 3 to 4 p.m. time frame, now this is Central Time, so we're looking at 2 to 3 p.m. Mountain Time once that snow begins to move just a little bit further in. Again, if you've watched my last video, I gave a little bit more of an in-depth conversation of exactly what's going on with the frontal boundary and how all this moisture is overrunning this frontal boundary. And so just north of that, we're going to be looking at some moderate to possibly at times heavy snowfall. And then south of that, and you can kind of see this on the model a little bit, south of that frontal boundary, we're looking at the possibility of some freezing drizzle and some sleet and some freezing rain. So as we continue on here and go into Wednesday evening around, again, 6-7 Central Time, so 5 to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, that snow continues to push a little bit further east. Again, that frontal boundary right in through here. So that warm moisture overrunning it and that heavier snowfall just to the north of that frontal boundary. But again, to the south, we're concerned about the freezing rain and the freezing drizzle. Now, by around 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time, again, that frontal boundary kind of sitting in through here. And this low pressure system, kind of almost a double-barreled low, it essentially just kind of slides down to the southeast. So along with that, we're going to be seeing the snow slide to the southeast along with that storm system sliding in that direction as well. And then on the south end, we're concerned still with a little bit of freezing rain and freezing drizzle and sleet. I think most of it will be more so confined into southwest North Dakota, but there's a little concern and possibly into parts of South Dakota as well. Now, as we get to around that midnight time frame here, it just begins to poke into west central parts of Minnesota at this point, where that snow begins to fall again, perhaps little pockets of moderate here and there across the James River Valley region. And then by 4 a.m. or so, that snow begins to move into the Twin Cities in the far southeastern parts of Minnesota, while further back to the north and west, that snow just continues to fall. So in some of these areas, we're going to be getting a prolonged period of snow. So that's where, especially up in the northwest to north central parts of North Dakota, is where we're looking at having the greatest impact as far as the amount of snowfall that's expected to occur. So now as we continue on, we get to about 7 a.m. here, begins to lighten up just a little bit further back to the west. The snow continues down here in the Twin Cities. So around that rush hour time frame here, Thursday morning, could be very problematic, especially if some of this snow is a little more moderate to heavy at times. So keep that in mind for those of you who are dealing with the rush hour traffic down in the Twin Cities metro area. Could be a kind of slick, could be kind of nasty there to start off the day. Now, as we continue on, this storm system moves quickly down to the south and east. And as we move into the afternoon hours, this is around 1 p.m., you can see how quickly some of this snowfall begins to dissipate. The storm system really begins to run out of moisture, at least around this portion of the United States, around our area here. So once we get to noon, 1 p.m., we're starting to deal more so with some lighter snowfall, perhaps some flurries in some areas. And by this point, the snow is now ended off here in the west. And then once we get to 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., you can see how quickly that moisture just kind of dries up and the snow ends across the region. Now, back behind it is this high pressure system that settles in. And of course, as always, that means some colder temperatures for some of you across our area, especially kind of within that area that's going to be expecting snowfall, kind of in that northeastern parts of our region. We're expecting some colder air to settle back into our area, unfortunately. And also note with this, we're going to back this up as that high pressure does try to push in. We're going to be seeing some pretty strong winds on the back side of this. Now, thankfully, where the snowfall is expected to occur up in the northeastern parts of our area, the stronger winds should remain down further to the south and west. So that's the good thing. I kind of mentioned that in the last video. Remains to be true at this point, where the real strong 50 to 60 mile per hour winds should stay south and west of the heavier snowfall. In fact, if we take a look here at the wind gusts going into early Thursday morning, rather, this is by around 6 to 7 a.m. and then noon time frame. There you can see the 40 to 50 to possibly 55 mile per hour winds kind of along the Missouri River area and westward. So again, kind of staying mostly out of the heavier snowfall areas. But you know, also note along with that, we do have some areas that could gust 25, perhaps 30 at times here and there. It just depends on exact timing or how some of this sort of plays out. So while we won't see the strongest winds coupled with the highest amount of snowfall, we will have some gustier winds that are going to be mixed in with some of the snow, and that's going to be reducing visibilities and of course causing some blowing and drifting and making those roads treacherous to drive on in some of these locations where the snow is really going to be dumping. And here's a little graphic just to give you an idea of the timing when the snow and some of the freezing rain and freezing drizzle is going to move in. Again, kind of mostly concerned with the freezing drizzle down in southwestern parts of North Dakota, but essentially between noon and 7 p.m. on Wednesday, that winter storm will kind of make its way into Dickinson and Hettinger and Bismarck and making its way over to Medina and Steele and up to Rugby and back over to Williston and Minot and Bottineau. So all you guys before 7 p.m. on Wednesday are expected to see at least the snowfall begin. And then between 7 p.m. and midnight, that storm's going to continue to stretch to the south and east. So those of you down in Mobridge and Aberdeen and Fargo, stretching down into Alexandria, Grand Forks, Devil's Lake, you should all be seeing the snow by the time we get to midnight Wednesday night. And then between midnight and 7 a.m., that snow stretches through the Twin Cities and going to be including Sioux Falls and Mankato and Rochester and up through Brainerd, Bemidji, through Red Lake and up to Hallock, Badger, Greenbush, Middle River. All you guys between midnight and 7 a.m. will be seeing that snow move through your area. And then beyond that, from 7 a.m. to noon, the rest of you kind of spreads a little bit further east, but mainly talking about those of you up here in the Arrowhead region of Minnesota. You're going to be seeing your snowfall in between that 7 a.m. to noon time frame on Thursday. Now, what are we looking at for expected snowfall at this point? As I mentioned before, this is kind of the area we're concerned about receiving the most here up in the northwest to north central part of North Dakota. Again, we're going to be seeing some moderate to possibly heavy at times, but also this is kind of the area that will see the snow for the longest amount of time. So all kinds of possibilities here to accumulate some snow. So we're looking at 6 to 9 inches up through the Devil's Lake Basin, Minot, Williston. Again, that kind of Bottineau, Rugby area, perhaps stretching down to Jamestown and Valley City as well. Then we have 4 to 7 inches in through here. Now notice this tight little gradient here, really, really tight between our little blue area of trace to 2 inch and 6 to 9. So, you know, I talked about that frontal boundary that sits in through here and how we get that warm, moist air overrunning it. We get that narrow band or that area that just gets all kinds of moderate snow. So if this frontal boundary should shift either north or south just a little bit, obviously is going to impact some of you guys a fair amount, just because you could be looking at 2 to 3 inches and perhaps it slips just a little bit further south and you're going to be looking closer to 4 to 8 inches if that does indeed take place. And just one more thing to think about here as the models have continued to come in. This line has actually been slipping just a little bit to the south and west. So those of you in this circle here, there's some uncertainty there just because if that, like I said, if that frontal boundary slips a little bit either way, your forecast is going to change a fair amount. So again, keep that in mind as we go through this time frame, especially for those of you going into Wednesday and into Wednesday night. But I digress. Here's what we're going with for now with the forecast: 2 to 5 inches. Just kind of reaching that Bismarck area down, kind of tapping Aberdeen down to Brookings, and then that line down into Mankato and Rochester, and then back up into Duluth, then along some of the North Shore, and then back up into Bemidji and just Red Lake Falls, Hallock, Pembina. So that's kind of the line that we're looking at in that 2 to 5 range. And then 4 to 7, again, kind of within this tight little window here of pink, stretching down into Fargo and Wahpeton, down into the Twin Cities potentially, and then back up into Grand Forks, including Alexandria, Fergus Falls, St. Cloud. All of you guys could be in that 4 to 7 inch range. And we also have that freezing rain and freezing drizzle potential. Again, main concern being down here into the southwestern parts of North Dakota. That's our main concern. We could see a little bit stretching somewhat into South Dakota. We'll keep an eye on that and see if that does indeed develop. But for now, we're just kind of keep our focus into North Dakota. And with all the snow and some of the wind that's going to be associated with it, I think these areas in here in red are going to be feeling the greatest impact out of this particular winter storm. Now, obviously, given all the snowfall up and through this region, up and through here, that's really going to be a good chunk of the problem. But I also kind of spread it a little bit further to the south and east beyond that, just because there could be some areas of gusty winds developing through the overnight hours Wednesday night into the early parts of Thursday morning. And if that does indeed happen, on top of some of the snowfall that it's expected, expect some bad travel conditions in through these regions where you're looking at the reduced visibilities down to a quarter mile, perhaps less at times, but also slippery road conditions, and just generally not fun stuff to drive through for this time of year. So that's kind of my main area where I'm really kind of hyper focused on the potential for really seeing an impact out of this. But of course, anywhere within, you start talking 4 to 7 inches in general, it's just going to be a mess in general, and especially down here, if you get that down here in the Twin Cities, of course, right through the rush hour time frame, not going to be fun to deal with. And so the National Weather Service for now has issued a winter storm watch for all you areas here in blue. I wouldn't be surprised if you see at least winter weather advisories expanded down into the Twin Cities area, either going in here tonight, Tuesday night, or perhaps Wednesday morning. Again, wouldn't be surprised to see that. And of course, as time moves on, some of this will probably have to transition into a winter storm warning or something of that nature. And who knows, like I said, if that frontal boundary slips a little bit further south and west, some of you counties down here in the south and west could be included in this winter storm watch as well. Now, once that system moves out, we have that high pressure sits in for a day or so. We've got a little bit of snow moving through again on Friday into Friday evening. Not a whole heck of a lot expected with that, but still, some of you areas up here into north central, northeastern parts of North Dakota, you might pick up another 2-3 inches of snow. For some of you that have already, will probably already see over 6 inches of snow from this one on Thursday. And that snow slides off to the south and east through the night, Friday night. And then it looks like for the remainder of the weekend, it should be dry, perhaps a little bit of freezing rain or drizzle moving into western parts of North Dakota Sunday night. And so that's what I've got for you for your update with this winter storm moving through. Be sure you stay alert. Keep up to date with the road conditions, 501, especially across North Dakota and Minnesota as you travel throughout Wednesday and Thursday. And also be sure you check out my social media channels, as I will be keeping the latest updated graphics up there that I have, or share anything that I've been seeing and passing that along. So make sure you follow along on Facebook and X in particular, as I'll post any updates on there. And of course, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the like button down below. That would help me out tremendously and gets this channel more noticed, so that we can get this type of weather information to more people who are looking for it. Gosh, I've been getting so many new people on lately and just saying, hey, great, glad I found your channel. Fantastic. Make sure you hit that like button, share the page. The more we can get this information out there, the better, because obviously people are looking for it. They don't find it. They can't find it. YouTube kind of buries me a little bit. So help me out. That's the way you can kind of help me out, is make sure you hit that like button first of all, but don't be afraid to share this page as well. All right, everybody, for Region Weather Live, I'm meteorologist Brad Warner. Everybody have a good day.